Got a pretty interesting spot I want to go over that I played recently. This is a $500,000 buy-in, and I'm sitting in the big blind right now as the cards are being dealt. I just hopped in, so I'm actually down one big blind right now, and I look down at Jack 9 of diamonds in the big blind. Under the gun limps. Under the gun +1 limps, and the next player decides to put in a raise to 5x pot, or I'm sorry, not 5x pot. It is put in a raise to 5x, which is a standard size raise because there have been 2 limpers. So my usual strategy if I'm opening first is to raise to 3x the big blind plus 1 big blind for every limper before me. So she's raised at 5x. I'd say that's a perfect sizing. I'm giving this person some credibility for their hand. The limpers don't really care what they have because limping is generally considered to be not optimal full-handed table like this. So the next player decides to call, and at this point, if anybody else decides to call, I might call as well. If no one else calls, I may call or I may fold. Probably leaning toward folding. But as you can see, the initial raiser gets a second caller and a third caller. This guy's even paying attention. He might have folded. Oh, he calls. And this guy finally folds. So now I'm getting an amazing price to come in and see a flop, right? I mean, look how big the pot is now. The pot is over one entire, the pot is essentially the fifth of someone's stack right now. So it's a very decent size to come in and see what's going on here, even when I haven't even risked that much. So, and of course that entices these other limpers to call, which is why I don't know, sometimes you got to just see a flop and fold if you raise. Anyways, we flop a gutter and a backdoor flush draw, and obviously we're going to decide to check it here and see if we can get the action back on the initial raiser. And honestly, since there's so many people in the hand right now, if this raiser continues, I'm going to fold this right now. But action checks around. So we get a turn card for free, which is fine by me. And it's the 6 of diamonds. So my plan right now is to bet small and see if I can get a little bit of value from maybe a lower pocket pair or something like a set, because the only reason why I am making this bet here is to either get everyone to fold or to, if I hit anything on the river, jam and just win a massive pot. But that did not work at all, because after my bet, under the gun calls. Under the gun +1 calls, the initial raiser calls, and this guy also calls. So we're going 5 ways, or no, yeah. So we're going 5 ways now to a flop, or to a river, I'm sorry, which is the best card in the world for my hand. This is what's called a backdoor flush. So I have made a flush with the least possible chance of that occurring, which means it's very hidden to other players. Very hidden. It's very hard to put someone on a backdoor flush. So what I'm hoping is that somebody here has something crazy like pocket kings. And, you know, even though the board didn't pair, they've still got their pocket kings, and they're going to rip it in here, and I'm going to be right behind them. And by that point, I don't really think there's going to be many people that want to call this off. I mean, my first plan of action, though, is to make it look like I didn't just hit one of the best hands you could possibly hope for in poker, a backdoor flush, because of the fact that they're unlikely to hit, right? I want my opponents to do some betting for me. Under the gun decides to make a tiny bet out. It gets called by one person, the initial raiser folds, that other guy folds, and there's still two people that think they have the best hand. Now, here's where a slight problem arises. The question is, do I raise here or not? If I raise here, what's calling me? An ace high flush, obviously. But what isn't calling me is everything that I am beating. So it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to bet one more time if I'm running into the nut flush every now and then. See, the problem is like, a backdoor flush is so hard to put someone on that when you get it, you have to treat it like you essentially have the nuts. Even though I don't have the nuts, because I don't have the ace high flush, I still have a very good hand. That being said, since a backdoor flush is so hard to come by, when you get it, it's almost impossible to lay it down. And I didn't feel like gambling more to win, to maybe fold people out of a huge pot or only get called by worse and end up losing $500,000. I instead decided to just call it off and win, right? Because I figured, if no one else raised. The thing was, too, I was also out of position, so I was the last person to act. If I was the first person to act, I would have shipped it totally. I would have absolutely shipped it because, look, I mean, this guy's willing to bet out into me with nothing but king high or a pair of kings right there, right? Which, I mean, rightfully so. I mean, he had pair of kings, good kicker, and it's a winner at showdown a decent amount of the time, but I mean, you can't beat a backdoor flush. So this guy doesn't even show his hand. I'm willing to bet if he couldn't even beat a king, he was bluffing, which I don't know why he called there. He should have folded the river, or he should have jammed the river. In which case, yeah, if he jammed... See, man, that's the thing. If he jammed, I'm just not getting away from it. I know I would have won in this case, right? But this is an interesting spot because I challenge anyone in the world to river a backdoor flush. That means you have to turn a card that makes you have a flush draw and then river that flush. It's very hard to do that. And have it be for value, obviously, because, the flop is the most important part of the hand. That's when you figure out what the majority of the hand that you're going to be putting in money with looks like. So a backdoor flush is very good. But I challenge anybody to be able to fold the backdoor flush, and my God, it would be such a cooler if someone else rivered, the nut flush was something like ace 10 of diamonds. God, that would be sick. Oh, that would be so sick. But, yeah. That's why I decided to just call there, was because, I figured I could win a really large pot and not risk losing an even bigger one. So that was the end of that hand. That put me up at almost 1 million chips. And yeah,